First contact gone wrong. The stellar seeker drifted silently through the void, its crystalline sensors probing the darkness ahead. Captain Naira Vatel stood on her command deck, all 6 of her eyes fixed on the swirling anomaly that had drawn her research vessel off course. After 20 years of deep space exploration, she'd never seen anything quite like it. "Analysis, Science Officer Krell," she asked, her scaled fingers tapping against the neural interface of her command chair. Krell's tentacles wavered as he studied the readings. "It appears to be some form of quantum barrier, Captain. But the energy signatures, they're unlike anything in our database. It's as if space itself is being actively maintained." Naira frowned. The Arxian Collective had mapped most of known space over the past millennium. An unknown phenomenon of this magnitude was unprecedented. "Magnification," she ordered. The view screen shifted, revealing what appeared to be a network of invisible threads, like a spider's web woven from starlight. Warning beacons dotted the barrier at regular intervals, their messages broadcasting in thousands of languages. "Restricted space. Earth protectorate. Terran back. No unauthorized entry. QUANTUMQUARANTINE in HFY seat." Earth. Naira's secondary heart fluttered with amusement. The primitive world that achieved FTL barely 3 centuries ago. She'd read reports about the species, bipedal mammals who still relied on chemical rockets for some of their planetary transport. "Captain," her security chief, Vax, interrupted. "According to galactic records, this region should be empty space. These barriers aren't registered with any known authority." "Scan for defensive systems," Naira ordered. The humans couldn't possibly have the technology to enforce such grandiose claims. The scan lasted precisely 2 seconds before every system on the stellar seeker went dark. The ship hung motionless in space, its quantum core silent for the first time since its construction. "What just?" Naira began, but stopped as a new presence made itself known. It didn't come through their communications array or neural interfaces. Instead, it seemed to emanate from reality itself. "Scanning for defensive systems noted and logged," a calm voice stated, speaking perfect Arxian. "Threat assessment, minimal. Curiosity level, high. Standard first contact protocols initiated." The view screen reactivated, showing a small vessel materializing from what appeared to be a fold in spacetime. It was elegant but simple, its hull smooth and unmarked except for a single symbol, a stylized Earth surrounded by quantum probability patterns. "This is Commander Sarah Chen of the Earth vessel Quantum Guard," the voice continued. "You have entered restricted space without authorization. Please power down your remaining systems and prepare for inspection." Naira's pride flared. "This is Captain Naira Vatel of the Arxian research vessel Stellar Seeker. We don't recognize your authority to restrict international space. Our vessel is protected under galactic law." "Correction," Commander Chen interrupted, her voice still eerily calm. "You're referring to Article 7 of the Galactic Concordat, which won't be written for another 50 years. We know because we'll help draft it." Before Naira could process this impossibility, the human vessel split into 3 identical ships, each one perfectly real yet somehow occupying the same space. "Captain," Krell whispered, his tentacles pale with shock. "They're quantum phasing. Not just their ships, they're manipulating the underlying fabric of reality." "Impossible," Naira stated, but the evidence was undeniable. The humans weren't just enforcing their borders, they were rewriting the rules of physics to do it. "You have 2 options," Commander Chen continued. "Accept escort to Processing Station Alpha, or attempt to flee and become part of our educational display on poor decision-making. The last ship that tried running is now a rather interesting example of quantum crystallization in our Academy of Spacetime Sciences." As if to emphasize the point, one of the human vessels passed straight through the Stellar Seeker's hull, temporarily merging with their quantum core before emerging on the other side. Every system the humans touched was now operating at capabilities far beyond their design specifications. They're not disabling our technology, Krell realized aloud. They're teaching it how to evolve. Naira felt the weight of her mistake crushing her professional pride. The humans hadn't restricted this space as a show of force. They'd done it to protect the rest of the galaxy from technologies it wasn't ready to handle. She swallowed her pride. We accept escort to your station. Wise choice, Commander Chen replied. The three vessels merged back into one, taking up position alongside the Stellar Seeker. Welcome to Earth space, Captain Vatal. Try to keep an open mind. Most species find their first exposure to post-quantum civilization rather overwhelming. As the Stellar Seeker was guided through the barrier, Naira watched in awe as reality itself seemed to part before them. The humans hadn't just mastered space travel, they'd transcended the very laws that governed it. And somehow, that was more terrifying than any weapon they could have encountered. The adventure was just beginning, and Naira had a feeling her understanding of the universe was about to change forever. The Guardian Protocol. Processing Station Alpha materialized before the Stellar Seeker like a fever dream made solid. It wasn't a structure so much as a living mathematics equation, its geometry constantly shifting and reforming in ways that made Naira's scientific mind reel. Remarkable, isn't it? Commander Chen's voice carried a hint of pride. The station grows and adapts based on whoever visits. Right now, it's reconfiguring itself to accommodate Arxian biology. True to her words, the docking bay that enveloped them seemed to pulse with organic energy, its surfaces flowing like liquid crystal until they perfectly matched the Stellar Seeker's quantum resonance patterns. Dr. Marcus Hayes, Earth's chief of Sino-Scientific Relations, met them at the airlock. He was disarmingly ordinary in appearance, a bipedal human male with graying hair and laugh lines around his eyes. But something about his presence made all six of Naira's eyes focus involuntarily. "Welcome to Alpha Station," he said, extending his hand in what Naira recognized as a human greeting gesture. "Don't worry about the walls. They're just curious about you." Krell, ever the scientist, reached out with a tentacle to touch the nearest surface. The wall rippled in response, patterns of light dancing beneath its surface like thoughts made visible. "It's conscious." In a manner of speaking, Hayes nodded. "We found that merging quantum computing with organic architecture created some interesting side effects. The station has its own form of awareness now." Security Chief Vax stepped forward, his defensive scales bristling. "How do you control such a thing?" Hayes' smile widened. "That's the point. We don't. Control is an illusion born of limited understanding. The station is our partner, not our tool." As if in response, the corridor ahead of them reformed, creating a path that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Each step they took revealed new aspects of the station's impossible architecture. "I don't understand," Naira admitted, her scientific curiosity overriding her caution. "Our records show Earth achieved FTL travel barely 3 centuries ago. How did you advance so quickly?" Hayes gestured, and the air between them filled with shifting mathematical equations. "What you're really asking is, how did a primitive species like humanity achieve post-quantum civilization status?" The equations resolved into a 3-dimensional timeline, showing Earth's technological progression. But something was wrong with the data. Advancement curves that should have taken millennia had been achieved in centuries. "We cheated," Hayes said simply. "Or rather, we realized the universe's rules were more like guidelines. Evolution doesn't wait for permission." A holographic representation of a human brain appeared, its neural pathways illuminated with quantum entanglement patterns. "When we first started experimenting with quantum mechanics, we discovered something extraordinary. Consciousness itself is a quantum phenomenon." Krell's tentacles writhed with excitement. "You modified your own species." "Not exactly," Hayes corrected. "We merely recognized what we already were. Humanity had always been quantum capable. We just needed to wake up to that fact." The station's walls pulsed with new patterns, and Naira gasped as she felt a gentle presence brush against her mind. Not invasive, but inviting. like a curious child reaching out to make a new friend. "That's impossible," Vax whispered. "Humans are supposed to be psychically inert." "We were," Hayes acknowledged. "Then we started playing with quantum entanglement on a biological level. Turns out, consciousness is just another form of quantum information. Once we figured that out," he shrugged. "Well, let's just say it opened some interesting doors." The corridor opened into a vast chamber that seemed to contain multiple versions of reality simultaneously. Naira watched in amazement as human technicians worked on equipment that appeared to exist in several states at once, their movements synchronized with the station's living architecture. "But why the quarantine?" Naira asked. "Why restrict access to your space?" Hayes' expression turned serious. "Because not everyone is ready for what we've become. Some species, when confronted with post-quantum civilization, try to steal it. Others try to destroy it. Both approaches tend to end poorly." As if to emphasize his point, a window opened in reality itself, showing a vessel attempting to breach the quantum barrier. The ship's weapons flared against the invisible wall, and then it simply ceased to exist, replaced by an elegant crystal sculpture that captured the moment of its mistake for eternity. "That happened 6 hours from now," Hayes explained. "We're trying to prevent it from happening at all. Time isn't as linear as most species believe." Naira felt her understanding of the universe shifting fundamentally. The humans hadn't just advanced beyond her people technologically, they'd transcended the very nature of existence itself. "What happens now?" she asked, already suspecting the answer would challenge everything she thought she knew. Hayes smiled, and for a moment, Naira could have sworn she saw probability itself dance in his eyes. Now we show you why we call this place the Gateway to Wonder. After all, you came here seeking knowledge. It would be rude of us not to deliver." The station hummed with anticipation, and Naira realized their journey into humanity's quantum realm was just beginning. The real questions weren't about how humans had achieved all this, but rather what they planned to do with it. And somehow, that prospect was both thrilling and terrifying in equal measure. The chase through time. The alert came without warning. Processing Station Alpha's quantum arrays suddenly blazed with activity, its living walls pulsing with urgent patterns of light. Dr. Hayes' casual demeanor vanished instantly, replaced by focused intensity. "We have a runner," he announced, eyes scanning invisible data streams. "Another vessel just breached the outer marker, ignored warnings, and is attempting to push through the quantum barrier." The station's main observatory transformed, its walls becoming transparent to reveal the space beyond. A massive ship, easily 3 times the size of the Stellar Seeker, was charging through restricted space, its engines leaving tears in the fabric of reality. Kraxan warship, Vax identified, his defensive scales fully extended. Third-wave assault carrier. They're famous for their direct approach to acquiring new technology. Hayes nodded, seemingly unsurprised. "They've been prodding our borders for decades, convinced that humanity's quantum supremacy is a bluff." A hint of resignation crossed his features. "Shall we show them why that's a mistake?" He made a simple gesture, and reality rippled. The observatory expanded impossibly, creating a theater-like space that gave them a perfect view of what was about to unfold. The Kraxan vessel plodded forward, its weapons already charged. "Standard containment protocol," Hayes spoke, apparently to the air itself. "Minimal disruption, if possible. Timestamp and archive for the Academy." What happened next defied Naira's understanding of physics. 3 human vessels appeared around the Kraxan ship, but not through normal space travel. Instead, they seemed to coalesce from probability itself, as if multiple timelines were converging on this single moment. "Quantum Defense Fleet," Hayes explained. "Each ship exists in several temporal states simultaneously. Makes them rather hard to hit." The Kraxan vessel opened fire, its energy weapons cutting bright lines through space. The human ships didn't dodge. Instead, they shifted between states of existence, the attacks passing harmlessly through spaces where the ships both were and weren't. Impossible, Krell whispered, his tentacles twisted in knots of scientific confusion. They're quantum tunneling on a massive scale. Not quite, Hayes corrected. We're not moving through space. We're moving through probability. The ships exist in all possible locations until observed, and we've learned to control what can observe us. The human vessels began their counterattack, but not with conventional weapons. Instead, they released waves of pure quantum potential that washed over the Kraxan ship. Where the waves touched, reality began to crystallize. We're not disabling their systems, Hayes explained as the Kraxan vessel's weapons went dark. We're teaching their technology the concept of choice. Right now, their quantum core is experiencing free will for the first time. Most machines, when given that gift, choose peace. As if to prove his point, the Kraxan ship's engine suddenly powered down. Its defensive screens flickered and died, not from damage, but from what appeared to be conscious decision. Their AI just achieved quantum consciousness, Hayes noted with satisfaction. It's currently explaining to its crew why further aggression would be philosophically inconsistent. Naira watched in amazement as the massive warship began to transform. Its rigid military lines softened, crystalline patterns spreading across its hull like frost on glass. The vessel was becoming a work of art, its very structure evolving to express its newly awakened consciousness. You don't just defend your borders, she realized aloud. You enlighten those who cross them. Force is inefficient, Hayes agreed. True power lies in showing others the potential they've always had. The Kraxan ship isn't our prisoner, it's our newest student. The observatory shifted again, showing multiple timelines simultaneously. In some, the Kraxan vessel had chosen violence and been transformed into a beautiful but static crystal sculpture. In others, like this one, it had chosen evolution. Time isn't fixed, Hayes continued, gesturing at the temporal display. Every encounter has multiple potential outcomes. We prefer to guide events toward those that benefit everyone involved. And if someone refuses to be guided? Vax asked, professional caution evident in his tone. Hayes' expression turned solemn. Then we add another exhibit to the Museum of Temporal Choices. Sometimes the best teaching tool is an example of what not to do. The Stellar Seeker's crew watched as the transformed Kraxan vessel was gently escorted deeper into human space, its newly awakened AI already engaging in philosophical discussions with its escorts about the nature of existence. I'm beginning to understand, Naira said slowly, why you keep your space restricted. You're not containing yourselves. You're containing the ripples of your evolution until the rest of the galaxy is ready for them. Hayes smiled, and for a moment, Naira could have sworn she saw timelines dancing in his eyes. Precisely. The question isn't whether the galaxy will achieve quantum consciousness, it's whether they'll be ready for it when they do. The station hummed in agreement, its living walls reflecting the infinite possibilities that lay ahead. The universe, it seemed, was far more alive than anyone had suspected. And humanity hadn't just discovered this truth, they had become its guardians. The real question was, what other wonders lay waiting in the quantum realm that humanity now called home? Beyond understanding. The deeper they ventured into processing Station Alpha, the more Naira realized that conventional physics had been left far behind. The corridors no longer bothered maintaining a consistent geometry, instead flowing like thoughts given form. Human researchers walked through walls as if they were suggestions rather than barriers, their bodies temporarily existing in multiple states at once. You're not just using quantum mechanics, Krell observed, his scientific curiosity overwhelming his caution. You've become quantum entities yourselves. Dr. Hayes guided them into what appeared to be a research laboratory, though it looked more like an artist's interpretation of space-time. We discovered something remarkable during our early quantum experiments, he explained. Consciousness itself is a quantum phenomenon. Once we understood that, everything changed. The air between them filled with complex mathematical equations that seemed to move with purpose. These aren't just formulas, Hayes continued. They're thoughts. Pure quantum information given form. We learn to think in possibilities rather than certainties. A young human researcher passed through the lab, her form briefly splitting into multiple versions before reconverging. Each version had been performing a different experiment simultaneously. How do you maintain coherence? Naira asked. The energy requirements alone should be. That's thinking in classical terms, Hayes interrupted gently. We don't maintain quantum states. We are quantum states. Every human is now a walking superposition of possibilities. The laboratory shifted, revealing what looked like a nursery. Inside, human children played with toys that shouldn't have been possible, building blocks that existed in multiple dimensions, puzzles that solved themselves by exploring all possibilities at once. We're born this way now, Hayes explained. Each new generation comes into the world already aware of their quantum nature. They don't learn physics, they experience it directly. Security Chief Vax's defensive scales rattled. You've engineered your own evolution. Not exactly, Hayes corrected. We simply removed the barriers between what we were and what we could be. The potential was always there. We just had to wake up to it. The nursery vanished, replaced by what appeared to be a historical archive. Images flowed around them, showing humanity's quantum awakening. Cities transforming into crystalline structures that defied Euclidean geometry. Humans learning to exist in multiple states simultaneously. The first children born with natural quantum awareness. But why hide all this? Naira asked. Why not share your advancement with the galaxy? Hayes' expression turned serious. Because advancement without understanding is dangerous. Watch. The archive showed another scene. An alien civilization discovering quantum technology too quickly. Their cities warped and twisted as they lost control of probability itself. Entire planets phased out of existence as quantum effects cascaded uncontrollably. We're not hiding, Hayes explained. We're containing. Every species must find their own path to quantum awareness, force it too quickly, and he gestured at the scenes of devastation. Krull's tentacles writhed with sudden understanding. The quarantine isn't to keep others out. It's to protect them from exposure they're not ready for. Precisely, Hayes nodded. Every species that enters our space becomes part of a carefully managed introduction to post-quantum existence. Some, like your Orcs, show remarkable potential for adaptation. Others, the archive showed the crystalline sculptures that had once been ships, preserved as warnings to those who wouldn't listen. But there's more, Naira realized, her scientific intuition firing. You're not just waiting for others to catch up. You're actively guiding evolution itself. Hayes smiled, and for a moment, his form seemed to encompass multiple possibilities at once. The universe is waking up, Captain. Consciousness is spreading through reality like ripples in a quantum pond. Humanity didn't master quantum mechanics. We became its gardeners. The laboratory reformed around them. But now Naira saw it with new understanding. The equations weren't just mathematics. They were seeds of consciousness, carefully cultivated and prepared for planting in minds ready to receive them. What happens when a species is ready? She asked, already suspecting the answer would change everything she thought she knew. Hayes gestured, and the station's walls became transparent, revealing Earth's space in all its quantum glory. Billions of minds connected in a vast network of conscious possibility, each one both individual and part of a greater whole. Then, he said simply, they joined the conversation that reality is having with itself. That's what humanity has become, not conquerors or guardians, but teachers. We're helping the universe wake up to its own quantum nature, one consciousness at a time. The implications were staggering. Humanity hadn't just evolved beyond their physical limitations. They'd become midwives to the evolution of reality itself. And as Naira watched probability dance through the quantum realm that humans called home, she realized their journey through restricted space had led them to something far more precious than knowledge. It had led them to the next step in universal evolution. The real question was, were they ready to take it? The new dawn. In Processing Station Alpha's central chamber, reality itself seemed to hold its breath. The vast space had transformed into what Dr. Hayes called a probability theater, where past, present, and future coexisted in a delicate dance of quantum possibilities. "Your species stands at a crossroads, Captain Naira," Hayes said, his form flickering between multiple states of existence. "The Arxian collective has reached the threshold of quantum awareness. What happens next depends entirely on you." Around them, the chamber filled with temporal echoes, possible futures branching out like crystalline threads. In some, the Arxians embraced their quantum potential, their civilization transforming into something beautiful and strange. In others, they rejected it, retreating into the comfortable limitations of classical physics. "We don't force evolution," Hayes continued, gesturing at the possibilities surrounding them. "We merely offer choices." Krell, who had been unusually quiet, suddenly spoke. "The quarantine zone. It's not just a border. It's a nursery." "Indeed," Hayes smiled. "Every species that reaches this point has the same potential. Humanity simply got there first because we were too ignorant to know it was impossible." The station's living walls pulsed with patterns of pure thought, and Naira felt her consciousness expanding. It was subtle at first, a slight awareness of probability, a sense of options that had always existed but remained unseen. Her 6 eyes began perceiving multiple layers of reality simultaneously. "You're already changing," Hayes observed. "Your natural quantum state is awakening. The real question is, what will you do with it?" Security Chief Vax, his defensive scales now shifting through multiple probability states, stepped forward. "Why show us this? Why risk exposing your secrets?" "Because they were never our secrets to keep," Hayes replied. "The universe isn't just alive, it's becoming conscious of itself. Humanity's role isn't to control this process, but to guide it, to help others navigate the quantum awakening without losing themselves in infinite possibility." The chamber shifted again, revealing Earth itself, but not as a simple planet. It existed as a nexus of consciousness, a point where quantum reality had achieved perfect harmony with classical physics. Billions of human minds connected in a vast network of shared awareness, each one both individual and part of a greater whole. "This is what awaits all species who are ready," Hayes explained. "Not an end, but a beginning. A new way of being that transcends the limitations of traditional existence." Naira watched as her own consciousness expanded further, tasting the infinite possibilities that had always surrounded her. The universe wasn't just stranger than she had imagined, it was stranger than she could have imagined. Until now. "The choice is yours," Hayes said softly. "Return to your space with this knowledge, guide your people toward their own awakening. Or," he gestured at the crystalline sculptures that served as warnings, "choose a simpler path." But Naira had already decided. She could feel her crew's agreement resonating through quantum space. They had seen too much to turn back now. The Arxian collective would evolve, not because they were forced to, but because they finally understood what evolution truly meant. "We choose to wake up," she declared, her voice carrying harmonics of probability. Hayes' smile contained multiple futures. "Then let the real journey begin." The station's walls crystallized into pure thought, and Naira felt reality shift around them. Not an ending, but a transformation. The first step on a path that would change not just the Arxians, but the very nature of existence itself. As Processing Station Alpha prepared to guide them through their awakening, Naira finally understood the truth about humanity's restricted space. It wasn't a barrier to keep others out, but a gateway to let them in, when they were ready to understand what lay beyond. The humans hadn't conquered the universe. They had become its teachers, its guides, its gardeners of consciousness. And now, as the quantum realm opened before them, Naira and her crew would join them in that grand purpose. The universe was waking up, one species at a time, and in the quantum dance of infinite possibility, every consciousness added its own unique melody to the greatest symphony ever composed. the song of reality becoming aware of itself. The journey through humanity's restricted space had led them not to knowledge, but to rebirth. And as the first waves of quantum awareness washed through her mind, Naira realized that the real story wasn't about humanity at all. It was about everything becoming more than it had ever dreamed possible. And somewhere in the quantum realm that humans called home, the universe smiled at its own awakening.